Rallies in the commodity markets, floats in Brazil, and yet the forecast for the USDA May report right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So we have Jerry Gidel here. We are going to start talking about the rallies of the commodity markets this week. So what's your take on this?
Well, this week's situation, uh, we've been going sideways. We're getting this USDA report. Now, all of a sudden, we're starting to get some issues popping up in here. We kind of led us up here a little bit last week, and it continued this week with the reality of the fact that we really did not get any real rain west of I-35, where in southwest U.S. where the hard red winter wheat is. And so that kept that rolling along the way from that point. And then soybeans started to get excited again from the standpoint that the Argentinian situation here started to get things kind of wound up down there from also this the issues of what the quality of their crop is and things of that nature. And then we ended up getting a good blast of rain down there that has put some of that part of the world in trouble. And probably even a bigger scenario here was Rio Grande do Sul, where there's about somewhere between 30 and 40% of the crop that has not been harvested. That's the one that really has been set in with some heavy, heavy rains and things like that. So that situation suggested that the USDA might actually decide to bring down their expectations for the Brazilian crop from this 155 zone down to maybe at least 152 or 151 from there. And I think that's quite interesting if they go ahead and get concerned about the issues in Argentina where they had the stagflation types of issues down there that impacted their soybean crop here over the last 10 days, or excuse me, a couple months here, 6 weeks or so. From
Well, and
there.
I think another aspect that we can anticipate is that these rains are going northward in Brazil, and that can affect the second corn crop in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, twofold on that scenario is the fact that uh, right now, at least, we sometimes have the shut off of moisture here from the north. Wow, excuse me. My throat seems to be off on a tangent here. And so the that's a really important factor here on the size of the second crop corn in Brazil. And so that's another feature. The rains definitely have impacted both Rio Grande and also Paraguay from that standpoint. I always get confused as to which way the fronts move this time of year in Brazil, if they're moving south or they're moving north. But I kind of feel like that particular issue is very important as to how things finalize out in Brazil and South America.
Yes, and let's jump right into the USDA May report. What are the changes that you are seeing for U.S. Yields?
Well, the we've got twofold. We're trying to finish up some updated information here on the old crop. In that last month on the soybeans, they decided that they were going to end up increasing carryover stock by about 25 million. I kind of feel like that particular one, though, is probably going to go ahead and increase the crush here a little bit and go right back to the 315 million level. and that similar situation in ethanol. We had a very good March number here on ethanol. From there now, April is going to be down, but seasonally that's a typical situation. That I really feel like that the summertime travel and the economy and this kind of stuff, we're going to have a pretty strong ethanol year, and so anticipate that maybe be up 25 million from there, and old crop wheat on that one in that particular market. I think that they too aggressive on cutting back on their feed usage. It's going to be closer to 688 versus 698 on old crop. But like you mentioned, the focus really is going to be on the new crop here going into the 2024 year. This is the first update of the USDA's 2024-25 S&Ds. And so that's definitely be the ones that people watch there accordingly. We'll be using the statistics from the March numbers here. The corn was less than expected, as you remember, and beans were not all that weren't as high as anticipated either on their increase along the way. But utilizing those planted numbers and expected harvested areas in that, it always comes down to what you expect the USDA might be doing with their 2024 yield expectations. They came out with 181 bushels back on the February outlook update they released back at the in Washington in their big meeting out there, and they looked at a 52 bushel beans. I'm not sure there's going to be a big change in what the USDA's numbers might say, but I guess, very cautious about the fact that I think last year's corn number has been overestimated, and that because of what we're seeing on our stocks report, and also on the fact that if this weather situation comes along and the corn is it, and we delay plantings and that, we get behind the eight ball here on getting corn planted. The two biggest diversions of our 5-year average came back in 2019 and 2022, and so to some extent we might be in another situation where that starts to occur here at this point. But heat in the summertime is still going to be the big feature. But you get the crop in a little late, it puts it in jeopardy of being in the hotter time of the season. So I'm kind of end up using a 179 number down 2 bushels, and I'm also using a half bushel less on the place to get started. That does decrease the available supplies in both those crops from there, from the standpoint of how many bushels are available. And then if we kind of keep the USDA's numbers, or maybe just add a little bit more demand in both ethanol or crush type situations because we're on such good trends on those markets, and that all of a sudden we're at on corn, we're back down towards the 2 billion number. Now we're not going to get below 2 billion. I don't sense that. I was looking for a 2 billion 32 million number. That actually slightly lower than my old crop number here by about 60 million in that. And on the soybean side of things, surprisingly, my calculations came out exactly the same at 315 million. Now, I wouldn't say either of those numbers are gangbusters, but they are definitely significantly lower than what the USDA put back out back in the wintertime and early this spring, and having those adjusted to what our acreage numbers turned out to be. So, to some extent, I think the current volatility in corn and soybeans could definitely be a lot more involved here. We've over the winter time and early this spring, we were just kind of bogged down with big crop sizes and coming out in front of us here, and no uncertainties going on. And I think we have now got some uncertainty or some issues popping up that's going to make things highly important here as to how South America finalizes this out and also how the 2024 U.S. corn and soybean crops get going here.
All right, then what are you expecting next week? Do you think there will be a good rally after the report?
Well, it's a possibility on how this market's going to be. We probably are going to have some type of maybe early week pullback in that, but I guess to me it depends a lot on how the Tuesday rain comes through here. If it puts some more tractors in the shed and not out planning in that, and I don't suspect that we're going to have some big jumps as I mentioned earlier here on plantings because of the rains that we've had so far this season or just recently, I should say, and that. So it's a situation where uh, the markets could be see some profit taken. I did suggest that some producers just today that maybe they should go ahead and make sure they're 75% sold on beans and are that 75% level on corn also for their old crop and maybe even get started with 10 or 15% sales. Weekends are always wild in the world of commodities. We have one attitude going into it, and things can shift dramatically. But interestingly enough, if this rain event happens on Tuesday, we could pull back on Monday and get back going again if it turns out to be a pretty wet weekend type situation from there. So that's something to keep in mind. One thing too is that we're also going to end up having the USDA put out its first winter wheat production number for the 2024 winter wheat. And that, interestingly enough, the USDA earlier expectations had a 1.9 billion crop size. Interestingly enough, the plantings were a little higher than expected, but I'm not sure we're going to have it. Our yields are still subject at this point because of the rains did not happen there west of I-35 in the southwest, and that. So our overall wheat supplies are probably going to end up keeping the new crop wheat carryover stock pretty close to the USDA's number. It's still going to be higher at 788 million versus this year's 688 million is my expectations. But I really think that if uh, issues in the Black Sea gets continued more heat and things of that nature, and impacting that crop. Australia is going to be subject to some issues, and right now, recently, we've had kind of a quiet storm going on here in India, and I think that some of the issues that are there and their needs for a big crop, I'm not sure that they're really getting that kind of supply. So wheat could also get some interesting news next week or in the world numbers that are put out next Friday.
All right, let's catch up next week. Thank you very much, Jerry.
It's always good to talk. And yes, I'm going to have my birthday celebration this weekend, and I'll be getting younger every year.
Congratulations.